He tore around in mad circles as if soaring had filled him with the excess of joy that had been spent through his legs, and then flung himself onto the ground to roll out the rest. His sister pounced on him, too close to the road, while she pulled the burrs from his coat. She scolded him for the recklessness of his flight, but Pax marveled at it. A good 5 full bounds he traveled without touching paws to the ground. He would try the feat himself one day. When Runt managed to get to his feet, he lowered his head and nuzzled his sister. She knocked him back on the ground, only mock rough this time, and then sat on him, pinning him down. He struggled a little, but never really tried to upset her, and he protested only meekly when she began to groom him. Pax settled himself a respectful distance away. After a while, her brother, now properly subdued and her irritation spent, Bristle retrieved the morsel of rat and dropped it in front of him. She lay down and began to lick her paws, then clean her face with them. Pax edged closer, so low that his belly brushed the ground. The company of these 2 young foxes drew him, whether he was welcome or not. Bristle stretched out in a patch of slanting sunlight. Her damp cheeks glistened like the pumpkin-colored wood of the table where Pax's humans ate their food, brilliant against the white of her sleek throat. Pax looked over at Runt, who was sniffing the spot where Pax had slept. His coat markings were identical, but not as vibrant. His fur was sparse and tufty in places, and his hip bones protruded at sharp angles. He reared back suddenly and pounced in mock attack. Pax watched as Runt tossed the toy soldier into the air and then pinned it down over and over. He had done the same thing as a kit. He trotted over and joined the game, and Runt welcomed him as though they had played together since birth. Bristle got to her feet. "Bring it here." Her brother ignored her for a moment, but then, as if he had been judging the limits of his sister's patience, he loped over and dropped the toy at her paws. Bristle issued a throaty rattle at the soldier. "Human, leave it. Home, now," she ordered her brother. Runt leaned into Pax and braced his forelegs. Bristle sprang back to nip at her brother. "He stinks of the humans, remember." Pax was startled by the image she communicated to her brother then. A cold, howling wind, a mated pair of foxes struggling with something that reminded Pax of his pen. Steel, but with jaws and clamps instead of bars. The steel jaws in the snowy ground were smeared with blood. Oh, Bristle tipped her head to assess the sky and sniff the breeze, which carried the threat of thunderstorms from the south. Home! Runt lowered his tail and began to follow his sister, but then he turned back to Pax, inviting him to come as well. Pax hesitated. He didn't want to leave his spot, the spot his humans would return to, but dark clouds were rolling in, and just then thunder boomed in the distance. He knew his boy would not venture out during a storm. He didn't want to think of getting drenched by the side of the road, alone. He tucked the toy soldier into his cheek and set out after the 2 foxes. Bristle turned when she sensed his presence. "One night only, human stinker." Pax agreed. He would follow his scent back to the road after the storm. His humans would come for him then, and once he found his boy, he would never leave his side.